Or on the play with 4-color Loam, he turned 1 Green Sun Zeniths for Dryad Arbor. One of the plays, of course, that Loam does have available.
Love this opening. Love this opening.
And for those of you who haven't seen, remember this fast shuffling, that's because this is our time-shifted match. It happened a bit earlier, so pace of play is going to be a little quick here.
Don't you know Jonathan Orr is actually the person who coached Brian Kibler on card flicking? This is all normal speed.
Turn 2, Chalice of the Void on 1 from Jonathan Orr. And we do know that the clock there is at 5:52. That is not the official clock for the game, but the table judge does have the game timer for the match.
Exactly.
Chalice on 1, how much of a problem is that for Golgari Depths?
It can be pretty rough. A lot of the ways that Depths is trying to interact are things in the vein of Thoughtseize. And then also it has things like crop rotation that give it the redundancy it needs to actually combo reliably.
So Orr goes ahead and Wastelands Fournier. Then Loam's back the Wasteland. Abrupt Decay did take care of the Chalice of the Void on 1, so board is clear again for Fournier. And this is kind of a good window, right? The Wasteland is gone here. The Chalice is gone. If he can make a 20-20, it might just work. We see Dark, that's exactly what he does. So he crop rotates into Dark Depths, who has that Urborg, makes 2 mana for Vampire Hexmage, makes a 20-20. It's Ronald Reagan. And Fournier gets game 1. There we go.
That's just some nice shout casting.
Yeah.
How did we get here?
Star Wars program online.
Sideboards.
All right. Let's go over to Jonathan Orr. So he had Chalice on 1 set up. He had Wasteland going. Those are all the tools he wants in the matchup. What happened there?
Basically, Fournier was able to knock down a lock piece, untap, and combo.
Yeah, so in that spot, I kind of was surprised. I didn't particularly like that Orr used, he used the Wasteland and then loamed it back. A lot of times in this matchup, it feels like you actually can't use Wasteland as aggressively as he did there.
It's a little bit rough, right? So you end up in positions where you're kind of, screwed if you do, screwed if you don't. If you hold it too long, you'll see Pithing Needles out of these Golgari Depths decks that shut off Wasteland. So you would rather be a little bit more aggressive and go, well, I have a Chalice of the Void to turn off crop rotation. I feel like I'm not going to have a window to activate Wasteland super aggressively if I just don't do it now. So going for mana denial is pretty understandable from Orr's position.
Yeah, I guess it's actually an understandable strategy. There he kind of got punished for it, right? Because then spawn had End Step Decay, untap combo, which is like, okay, that feels bad.
Right.
Are there additional tools he can use here when we look for game 2?
So the big thing that we're looking at is something like Swords to Plowshares is going to be able to take out the Merit Lage itself if Fournier combos. Like there we just saw Fournier go, during his main phase, put a 20-20 into play and go, all right, is this good enough? Or cycles a Tranquil Thicket, draws for turn and goes, yeah, I guess that's good enough, geez. But having a way to actually check the Merit Lage is an angle that Orr really wants to have access to.
And both players have kept here on 7 for game number 2, or on the play again. This time, no Green Sun Zenith to start things out, just with a Bayou. Now, I know that's Loam deck. A lot of times they actually play pretty well against other land-style decks.
Right, so a lot of it is just that you actually end up being able to put a single threat into the table, be it Dark Confidant, Knight of the Reliquary, that'll sort of win the game by itself.
And they don't get removed.
Exactly, and unless someone ends up having some way to break those, you end up just attacking each other's lands a bunch, all the while someone's applying pressure.
Now, interestingly, out of the sideboard, Fournier this time is the player with the Dark Confidant. I believe, actually, he has those in the main. Never mind.
Dark Confidant is something that's been showing up in the main decks of these Golgari Depths decks lately. Just with people starting to be a little bit more linear, your Dark Confidants are living a bit more, which helps you lean into this hand disruption package.
And another Dark Confidant from Fournier.
Both players, cost.
Yeah.
Fournier missing on a land drop there is pretty huge. Getting an extra look at it via the Dark Confidant, but Sylvan Library is, it might eventually convert into a mana source, but for now it is not one. Ooh, that is the world's saddest wasteland.
Yeah, so see, both players developing here. I mean, I guess the longer this goes, it feels like it's going to favor Or. He has more Dark Confidants. Just he's also the kind of deck that benefits more from a long game.
Exactly. You know, Fournier's cards, with any of these linear strategies, you're going to have a lot of things that aren't very good in multiples. Having multiple copies of Thespian Stage is not very good. Having redundant copies of combo pieces in general is something that is going to be fine going through Disruption earlier, but as the game progresses, when you're drawing 2 cards a turn and your opponent's drawing 3 cards a turn, you're going to get ground out, and that's going to be a problem.
Another Swords to Plowshares in hand for Jonathan Orr, found off Dark Confidant.
And picking up a copy of Thalia here is huge as well, off the other Dark Confidant, just because that's going to put Fournier in a position where he can't double spell as easily. And it's going to make it harder to set up these lines where Fournier, say, crop rotations for a Thespian Stage and then activates it in the same turn.
And now 2 Wastelands in play for Orr. He is at the ready for any sort of land combo.
Staring at both basic lands out of depths is just gotta feel something special.
Yeah, they play just 2? There we go. Yeah, that's both of them. So with this kind of pressure in play, Thalia and 2 Wastelands, how does Depths get through this?
Basically, so Pithing Needle is a good start. Turns off those Wastelands, and then you try it, quote-unquote, just combo through, like we saw Game 1. What we're more likely to see, so one of the costs of having these Dark Confidants in your deck is you end up frequently shaving on things like the Pithing Needles themselves. And
yeah, actually looking at it, Fournier doesn't have any in the list.
Right, and the idea there is you're just trying to actually fight through all of it and just have more cards than your opponent. Or being able to stick these 2 copies of Dark Confidant is just, it's a bad spot for Fournier.
Right, the idea of fighting through and having more cards than your opponent. Well, it's hard to do when your opponent has these Dark Confidants. And one of the things that I'm seeing in the matchup is both players are boarding in these Dark Confidants, but 4-color Loam, Jonathan's deck, has cards like Punishing Fire and Swords to Plowshares. So despite the fact that both players now have played 2 or 3 Confidants, Orrs get to survive, whereas Fournier's eat removal spells.
Right, and you know, honestly, Punishing Fire is one of the first cards Orr's probably looking to cut, but if neither player's Dark Confidants are dying, Orr is actually a little bit better at just applying good old-fashioned pressure.
Yeah, I mean, this is a heads-up part on his side too, right? Because this is Game 2. He has chosen to keep Punishing Fire in.
Exactly. Very, very strong on his part, realizing what the Depths decks have sort of leaned into lately and going, all right, I see you. We even see things like Sylvan Safekeeper coming in out of the Depths decks that you need to be able to answer or at least check a little bit.
The Dark Confidants trade here. Fournier down to 6. Chalice of the Void on 1 for Orr. And Fournier has a Wasteland. I guess like the play is to waste your opponent's Wasteland. There's a Ghost Quarter now in play for Orr too. Ugh.
It is. It's not a good spot to be. So the idea here is Fournier is representing crop rotation or something to that effect. You're trying to force Orr to target something with your Ghost Quarter where you then get to respond in crop rotation, so Orr just loses the card, and it fights for a window in order to actually just get to activate your cards as you want. And since this Chalice is coming down, you kind of need to force a situation where the crop rotation is good for you.
And Mox Diamond discarding a Wasteland for Orr.
This is what we call an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like you're going to loam something back. How about just another Dark Confidant? Cards are cards.
It's fine.
Sylvan Library for Fournier. He's at 6, so he can't. If he wants to keep more than one of them, he better win this turn. And with Punishing Fire in Orr's deck, no, he just can't take one.
And I want to draw a little bit of attention to how Fournier has navigated this game. Note that he transformed his Bayou into specifically another copy of Wasteland and doesn't have any other non-basics in play. So it's actually pretty hard for Orr to use that many copies of Wasteland and capitalize.
Yeah, he did set up for some good draws, but just wasn't able to make it work.
It's hard to beat. That was how many Dark Confidant triggers that game?
Yeah, see.
8, 10?
Fournier had a wealth of cards there in Game 1, but they trickled down to Orr for Game 2.
Yeah, exactly, and that came down to, oh, I just got it.
Ooh, all right. All right.
You're just doing this to me on air, too. Good grief. All right. All right. I'm
good stuff.
reeling.
Oh,
I'm reeling over here. But basically, we just saw that Or is better at playing a fair game of Magic, whereas a lot of Fournier's cards tend to be pretty anemic if you have to play a quote-unquote normal game of Magic, right? Crop rotation's not very good if it's not finding combo pieces.
That's something about the Golgari Depths deck. Even though it has all these lands and feels like a slow deck, this is just a combo deck. Its cards are mostly nonsense.
Exactly, and the draw to having this as your combo instead of something a little bit faster like Storm is it is a little bit harder basically just to interact with lands, right? You have Wasteland and you have Ghost Quarter and then maybe something like Blood Moon, but out of something like that, you can't force of will a Dark Depths, right? So other than Hex Mage, it can be hard to interact with what it is Fournier is trying to do. Shuffle, 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 shuffle.
I think
shuffle, mushroom.
I just love these time-shifted shufflings.
Oh, I definitely sit at home with my cards, and I was just like, other people can do it, so can I. Cardboard flying everywhere. Eventually, I'm just shrieking.
7 here from Fournier. And I know Daniel Fournier recently he was one of the players who was really, looks like about the 6 stars, he was really in on the arena grind. If I was following him, you know, those one of the Mythic Invitational.
We don't talk about Fournier.
He didn't get there. Did he not get there?
Let's,
oh no! Oh no!
Yeah, he ended up falling off in the last couple hours.
Oh man!
Really liked the self-control for a lot of people, where they were just like, "Yeah, I fell down to like 100th, and there's only an hour left. There's no way. I'm done. I'm calling it." Takes a lot of self-control to not just fight to the bitter end to come in 19th or whatever.
Sajiri step into Thespian stage for Daniel Fournier to start the game. No play so far. I mean, on white and colorless, there's not too much his deck actually can do.
I believe what you mean is colorless and generic.
What's the difference between colorless mana and generic mana?
Well, you see, colorless mana casts things like Thought-Knot Seer. Generic mana casts things like Soul Ring.
Okay. And, ooh, that's beautiful.
Oh, God, that art looks so good extended. That is a nice box topper Caracas from Or.
Loam and Caracas now in play first. So Caracas is going to be something that Fournier will have to deal with. Looking at, you know, he has three copies of Surgical Extraction out of his sideboard. He has Assassin's Trophy. He has 2 Wasteland as ways to kind of knock it off the board here.
Right, and what we'll likely see from Fournier is something that tries to set up a way to just make Life from the Loam less valuable, rather than actually hitting the Loam itself if he were to try and hit like Wasteland.
Now, Fournier has 2 copies of the card Rite of Consumption in his sideboard. Is that a way that he has boarded in to deal with things like Caracas, or is that too cute?
No, that's basically it, is when you know you can't give your opponent an extra turn. That's just the way that you get around that. Is, all right, I made my thing, I'm killing you right now. It also helps you beat the Ensnaring Bridge decks, for example. Interesting
of Kozak from Fournier takes care of a Swords to Plowshares. He did make a Mox Diamond, discarding a Dark Depth, so now has some usable mana online. Yeah, but Or is still loaming, and that's the problem.
Right, and now we got a proper Wasteland battle on our hands.
And these things get complicated so quickly. Fournier on end step was going to try to use this Thespian stage, but oh man.
Yeah, it's rough, right? Other than this Mox Diamond, Fournier doesn't have a lot of green and black sources, and he'd like to copy Or's Bayou.
Okay, and he actually just draws. He doesn't want to take the risk here. So as part of the issue, what's the issue here? Why didn't Fournier use the end step Thespian stage?
So you don't want to open yourself up to just getting Wastelanded and it
on
not
which
mattering.
Card?
Pick any of them. Not Sajiri step, but Wasteland is a big one here, where you want to be able to make it to where Or can't Wasteland the Wasteland, because Fournier is trying to set up a situation where you Wasteland your opponent's Wasteland, And then when Or goes to Wasteland your combo piece, you can respond in combo, which we might actually end up seeing right here if we can make Or use Caracas, for example.
So Fournier puts Dark Depths into play. And you're seeing a lot of, no one's doing anything because of Wasteland battles. So make sure I'm doing this one right. If the way he puts into play, because if Or Wastelands the Dark Depths, Fournier can just copy it with Thespian Stage and still have a Dark Depths and then make a 20/20.
Exactly.
And then he would waste the Caracas, then make the 20/20. Things would all line up. Right now with the lands in play, the player that moves first loses.
Yes, exactly. That is 100% what is going on. And Fournier does have a complex line here where you float a mana with Sagiri Step.
Okay.
Then you use Mox Diamond, sack the Sagiri Step, and get another copy of Wasteland. And then you Wasteland Or's Wasteland. And then when Or goes to Wasteland back, you respond and... Oh, wait, no, you're a mana short. Never mind. I was about to say, I forgot Dark Depths can't tap for mana here.
All right. Wasteland targeting Dark Depths. So Or has pulled the trigger.
It may just be time.
Well, it feels like this is where Fournier should waste the Caracas.
All right, so here... The spot here is, it's a leveled thinking game where Fournier is trying to say, why would Or do that? Does Or have a Swords to Plowshares or a card that can answer it? And it may just be a bluff from Or where if he doesn't have anything, he would only make this play if he did have something. But if Fournier is another land, it just doesn't matter.
So I think Fournier's going to go for a safer line. In response, he crop rotates the Dark Depths into another Dark Depths. And I actually really like this.
Oh, this is... Big fan of this. This is something that can end up hurting anything that would otherwise be sorcery speed.
However, Or loams back the Wasteland, so he also resets. And here we are, back where we started.
Stop me if you've heard this one before.
This is nice. Yeah, if Fournier had one more mana, he could have gone for a combo there, but he did not.
Oh, and he has this Rite of Consumption to beat Caracas now.
Okay, picks up Rite of Consumption. Yeah, that is lethal, and that may set up something.
Right, he just doesn't have the mana to Wasteland the Wasteland, activate the Depths in response. Oh, but that actually creates, because there's a Wasteland on the stack, or it could just Caracas before Fournier's priority to Rite of Consumption.
Right, so Dark Confidant, Fournier needed more resources. He wanted more mana, or used the opportunity to waste away the Dark Depths. So now we're kind of back to a stalled game.
Right, and this is a spot where Fournier really just, as you said a moment ago, just needs more resources. He's very close, but with Or just whittling him down with a Wasteland every single turn, it's rough.
It's a Wasteland, then he has a Punishing Fire for the Dark Confidant. Now, there's no Grove of the Burn Willows yet for Or, so things are still manageable. But Fournier, now one card in hand, he's running out.
The light's dimming, absolutely. There's a cute spot here where if Or goes to Wasteland in the Thespian Stage, Fournier can respond, fetch a basic, and then copy the basic.
They had this standoff. Fournier was trying to end the Cold War between the two of them, but it's just not working. Wasteland takes care of the Thespian Stage.
Ooh. All right.
That was another Reagan thing, by the way.
I just wasn't going to give it to you, I'm not doing it.
Tranquil Thicket cycles, draws into Wasteland, another one. And now we're just on mono Wasteland Loam from Jonathan Orr.
Right, and this is the spot where you're pretty confident you're not going to get comboed because Fournier didn't go for it previously, needed more resources off that Dark Confidant, and every turn he has one less resource than he had previously.
Yeah, these Loams are drawing multiple cards. And once you kind of grind your opponent down with life from the Loam, especially in this kind of matchup, it almost feels like it doesn't matter what happens after that.
Exactly, and this is one of the draws to just playing this 4-color Loam deck is you are better at grinding and just putting someone out of the game. This is pretty close to the Jund of Legacy.
Yeah, I mean he has the life from he has life from the Loam, and actually we used to see this as a Jund deck. You know, punishing Jund is a strategy that I think was a kind of an older version of this deck that we'd see.
Right.
So yeah, comparing it to Jund is really fair.
Right, exactly. All it wants to do is, play a card that is worth 2 cards, and then play a card that's worth 2 cards every single turn, and assume that eventually they'll get around to winning.
And look at the lands that Orr has up. Caracas and 3 Wastelands now. As Liliana the Last Hope starts ticking, Dark Confidant's drawing cards. He has 7 cards in hand. Punishing Fire in the graveyard, Grove of the Burn Willows in play. We actually have caught up to the match. This is going to slow down for a second. We're going to move that time shifted away as we have shifted all the way to the present.
Wanted more
Yeah, the
mana.
car is going to slow down.
Or use the opportunity to waste away the Dark Depths. So now we're
Ran
kinda
out
back
of
to
rocket fuel.
I mean, you
stalled
can
game.
only move that
Right,
fast
and
in a
this
game
is
of
a
Magic
spot
for
where
so long.
Fournier really just
They're
as
going
we
to
said
get
a moment
tired.
ago,
It just
needs
makes
more
sense.
resources. He's
Yeah.
very close, but with Orr just whittling him down with a wasteland every single turn.
Yeah, so we are at this point in round one now. Are getting an update from the judge that we may be reaching the end of time in the round. So Orr does have an advantage. However, will he be able to convert it to a win is the question I have right now.
Right, and without Knight of the Reliquary here, Orr doesn't have much of a clock.
Remember, the clock not at 5:52 right now. We will get an update on that in a second. Yeah, Four Color Dome does not have a great way to up the pressure, I don't think.
Exactly. You have your Knight of the Reliquaries, which are something that you can play that at this point with Orr's deck, I imagine you can make a 10-10 or something
Yeah,
out of
if
nowhere.
he's left them in.
Right, and that's the spot where they're very good whenever you're fighting over lands because they just give you more wastelands out of your deck, but they are not fast. And that could end up being a liability for Orr, where if Orr just wants to lean into his faster disruption in order to make sure you don't just quote-unquote get got like you did game one, then Knight of the Reliquary is going to be one of the things you end up sideboarding out of your deck. Oh, yeah, I saw him check his sideboard, and it looked like there was a
there's
Knight of the
Reliquary.
I saw at least one on top of it.
Yeah, thinking how can he do more damage? Is it possible? Still has Loam going in. Yeah, kind of talking, I think, with the judge here as to where they're at as far as, yeah, this is turn one.
Oh, was that his graveyard that it was on top of? Or was it his
Unclear.
sideboard?
Unclear. Yeah, an Assassin's Trophy in Fournier's hand. It looks like Fournier's going to try to play for the draw here.
Yeah, and at this point, a draw is better than a loss.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a round one of the tournament is a time where you would take the draw here.
He hit Knight of the Reliquary off the Liliana.
Okay, Liliana last vote buying back Knight of the Reliquary helps. Now, there is still an Assassin's Trophy in Fournier's hand.
Oh, it doesn't feel good, but you're going to have to play one to get through these Assassin's Trophies no matter what.
Right.
So this is step one that actually lets Orr close this game out.
Yeah, turn one is Orr's, so he attacks. Fournier's down to 12.
Right, so if Orr is able to find another copy of Knight of the Reliquary, other way to bring it back,
Right.
and then he plays a Knight of the Reliquary next turn, he could just attack, right, and then before damage, after no blocks are declared, just wasteland himself a couple of times to grow this Knight of the Reliquary to a huge
He casts
range.
Knight of the Reliquary. I mean, his graveyard is 30 some cards deep. This Knight of the Reliquary is lethal.
It is colossal.
Now, I don't think it's going to be around.
We don't talk about that.
Yeah. Thespian Stage going to copy. It looks like a wasteland. We'll confirm on that.
Is it possible that Orr maybe should have left up this Grove of the Burn Willows to get in a chip shot with Punishing Fire, and then done it again next turn and the following turn? That's worth 3 points.
Each one, so that's a rate of 3 mana for 1 damage with only 3 turns remaining. I'm just not sure that adds up very well. Fournier fetches down to 11.
He gets hit with the Dark Confidants twice,
Right.
which is 8 from 11, so it would have been 3 extra points.
Yeah, there's not another red source actually, because Grove is a red source, but look at the 2 lands under it.
But there's a Badlands up there.
Okay, yeah, he does have the one up there, so it's possible, you're right.
Right, and that does require Fournier fetching. There are things that have to happen for this to work.
It might be a line that Orr still has available, we'll see.
It's true.
Right, if Or just has a Punishing Fire in hand, he hasn't lost that opportunity at all. He has 2 more mana to spend. He can use them on Punishing Fire.
Right, that's a great point.
Assassin's Trophy takes care of the Knight. Yeah, and remember, he actually also, if Or needs extra mana to go for Punishing Fire kills, the red mana is what we're looking at. Those Wastelands do make mana if he needs them to. Turn 2 is Daniels. Looks like they have to resolve players really in the tank here. Quick judge call. Jonathan has gotten a quick short warning for game rule violation. He accidentally passed with 8 cards in his hand. So just said, no, you have to discard some of them. This is pretty benign. This happens actually when you're playing Loam decks a lot, as you just keep casting life from the Loam.
It's something that just comes up a lot because you have so many things like Life from the Loam and Dark Confidant. Just when they're left unchecked, you end up with 11 cards in your hand.
All right, looks like 2 copies of Punishing Fire in the graveyard for Or. So you were wondering how many of those he has.
Oh, he had another Grove hiding out up there. Oh.
Okay. Wasteland will take care of 1 of the Groves. Fournier back to 12.
Oh, he went after the Badlands because then Or has to let Fournier gain life to cast the Punishing Fires.
Well, the way to combat Punishing Fires is to go after that red mana, right?
Right, exactly.
And that's really smart by Daniel. Sylvan Library and a Dark Comet shows another Knight. Okay, that will be lethal
the avenue.
here. And remember, this is turn 3, so it's his last turn to cast a card like this.
Right, exactly. This is the way that Or actually gets to close the game.
Do you go in his spot for another Knight, or do you try to Punishing Fire your opponents out?
Easiest night of my life. I have had no cards in my hand other than a Knight, 3 mana on the battlefield, and my opponent with no cards in play, and it was a more difficult Night of the Reliquary than this. Easiest night of all time.
An attack down to 8 for Daniel. All right, so there's the Knight and Catacombs and a pass from Or. Turn 4, it's Daniel's last turn.
Urborg does not stop a Night of the Reliquary.
Yeah, and they're figuring out cleanup. Here we go, yeah, Or has to make a discard again. We'll get that second. A fistful of lands, so not really a relevant decision here.
It's definitely a spot where, all right, I have Life from the Loam, 2 Dark Confidants, drew for turn, rebought my Punishing Fires.
Yeah.
You're just going to lose track because, you know, when you end up in these late game situations, you know you're not going to trade all your resources anymore, and all that matters is damage, so you don't even think about it.
And no answer to Night of the Reliquary. Daniel extends the hand. So it is Jonathan Or on